Okay, this is part 4, video 3. We're on page 179. Arcite has just passed. He has stated his love for Emily. He has forgiven Palamon, and he has talked to Emily about the fact that if she ever needs to marry again, that she should consider Palamon. Okay, so let's pick up 179. The sorrows and tears of old and young were endless in all the town for the death of this Theban. Both child and adult wept for him. There was not such great weeping, certainly, when Hector, only just killed, was brought into Troy. Alas, the pity here! Scratching of cheeks and also tearing of hair. Why would you be dead, these women cry, when you had money enough and Emily? No one could raise the spirits of Theseus, except his old father Aegeus, who had come to know the multiplicity of this world, as he had seen it changing, both up and down, joy after sorrow, and sorrow after happiness. He expounded precedents and analogies to Theseus. So Theseus is the most upset out of everyone because he feels like that he's the cause of Arcite's death. Okay, he for 35 bad fortune, everyone in the whole kingdom is mourning Arcite's death, but Theseus is mourning it because he's blaming himself. The only person that can who understands the point in Arcite's death is Theseus's father Aegeus, because he's lived so long, because he understands fortune's wheel, because he understands whenever something bad, something good will happen, and with something good, something bad will happen. So what Aegeus is now going to do is he's going to talk to his son Theseus about that very same thing. Just as no man, he said, ever died who did not in some condition live on earth, so he said, there never lived a man in all this world who did not sometime die. This world is but a highway full of sorrow, and we are pilgrims passing to and fro. Death is an end of every earthly pain. And besides this, he said much more still to this effect, in order to exhort the people to take comfort. Duke Theseus, with all his diligent care, now planned where the funeral of good Arcite might be best held, in a manner honorable to his rank. In the end, he decided that in the place where Arcite and Palamon first battled for love, in the same fresh, green grove where Arcite showed his amorous desires, his plaint in the ardent fires of love, a fire would be built, in which the funeral rites might be wholly accomplished. Theseus then had the order given to lop and cut down the old oaks and lay them in rows of piles well arranged for burning. His officers then ran swiftly and rode at his command. After this, Theseus sent for a bier and covered it completely with cloth of gold, the richest that he had. He clothed Arcite correspondingly. He had white gloves on his hands. Also upon his head he had a crown of green laurel, and in his hand a bright, keen sword. So, let's talk a little bit about the good fortune that comes out of this. Aegeus, remember Theseus' father, explains that all men die, and that this is the fate, or this is fate that can't be controlled by humans. Aegeus' maturity and his life experience lead him to understand this, and Theseus is going to be influenced by his father, and we're going to see this influence at the very end of part 4. Because Aegeus has lived so long, and he's been around enough to see fortune's rising and falling pattern, he is the only human character in the Knight's Tale who understands that fortune's wheel is the driving force behind everything. Aegeus is therefore the only man capable of comforting Theseus at this point regarding this kind of accidental death of Arcite. So we then leave this. Make sure you have the notes for 36. Pause it if you need to make more time. We're now going to move on to what I just read, which was the funeral pyres being built of Arcite. The entire city, the kingdom, is mourning. Arcite is dressed appropriately. He's being given exactly what he deserves as a knight. Theseus laid him with his face bare upon the bier, and the same time he wept so that it was a pity to hear him. And in order that all people should see him, Theseus brought him into the hall when daylight came. It resounded with the weeping and the noise. Then came the woeful Theban Palamon, with fluttering beard and wild hair covered with ashes, and black dress all sprinkled with tears, and Emily, surpassing all the others in weeping, the saddest of all the company. So that the services would be the more noble and rich of its kind, Duke Theseus had 3 steeds brought forth. which were furnished with trappings of glittering steel and covered with the arms of Arcite. On these steeds, which were large and white, there sat men of whom one bore his shield, a second held up Arcite's spear in his hands, and the third carried his Turkish bow. The quiver and the trappings were of burnished gold. They rode forth sorrowfully at foot pace toward the grove, as you shall hereafter hear. The noblest there of the Greeks carried the bier on their shoulders at a slow pace and with reddened eyes through the city by the main street, which was wholly spread with black cloth. And all the street fronts to a great height were hung with the same. On the right hand walked old Aegeus, and on the other side Duke Theseus, with vessels of fine gold in hand, all filled with honey, milk, blood, and wine. Palamon also came with a great company, and after them came sad Emily, with fire in hand, as was then the custom to perform the funeral rite. As the wife, because once Arcite won the battle, they were declared husband and wife. As the wife, she is the one who is going to have to light the funeral pyre. Okay? So what Theseus has done is he has put Arcite on what they call a bier, and it's almost like a carrying shelf, and his body is kind of paraded through Athens, where all can see him and mourn him. Emily carries the fire that will light the funeral pyre behind him. Noble activity and great preparation were given to the services and the making of the pyre, which reached the heavens with its green top. Its sides stretched out 20 fathoms in breadth, that is to say, the boughs were so broad. There was first laid many a load of straw, but how the pyre was constructed above, and also where the names of the trees, such as oak, fir, birch, aspen, alder, holm oak, poplar, willow, elm, plane, ash, box, chestnut, linden, laurel, maple, thorn, beech, hazel, yew, dogwood, and how they were felled shall not be told by me. Okay, the knight is digressing. He's saying there was a lot of wood that was used, but I'm not going to talk about all of these kinds, and then he lists all of the kinds. Okay, we're moving on. Nor how the divinities ran up and down, disherited of their habitation, in which they had lived in common peace. Nymphs, fawn, hamadryds, nor how the beasts and birds all fled for fear when the woods were felled. This next giant thing that I'm going to read is a digression by the knight. He says, I'm not going to talk about all of these things, and then proceeds to talk about all of these things. Okay? Nor how the light the ground was shocked, not being accustomed to see the bright sun, nor how the fire was first laid with straw, and then with sticks split into threes, and then with green wood and spices, and then with cloth of gold and jewels, and hanging garlands of many a flower, and myrrh and incense, and so strong a fragrance, nor how Arcite lay among all this, nor what riches lay about his body, nor how Emily, as was the custom, put in this ceremonial funeral fire, nor how she swooned when the fire was made up, nor what she said, nor what was her desire, nor what jewels were cast into the fire when it had grown and was burning hard, nor how some cast their shields, and some their spears, and part of the clothes they wore, and cups full of wine, milk, and blood into the fire, which raged madly, nor how the Greeks in a huge troop rode thrice around the fire leftward with loud shouting, and thrice rattled their spears, nor how the ladies thrice cried out, nor how Emily was led homeward, nor how Arcite was burned to cold ashes, nor how the funeral wake was held all that night, nor how the Greeks performed their funeral games. I do not care to say. Who wrestled best naked and anointed with oil, nor who bore himself best, not getting into any predicament. I don't wish to tell either how they went home to Athens when the games were finished. I will move briefly to the point and make an end of my long tale. So again, the knight goes through all of this information. I'm not going to talk about all these things that happened at the funeral pyre and then the games that happened after. Let's just move to the point. By course of time and passing of a certain number of years, the mourning and tears wholly ceased. So it's not until years later that the mourning of Arcite, the mourning done by Emily, by Palamon, by Theseus, and by the kingdom has stopped. Okay? Then it seems to me there was, by a general agreement, a meeting of the Greeks at Athens on certain questions and affairs, among which questions it was proposed to have allegiance with certain countries, and to have the Thebans fully in submission, for which purpose noble Theseus then had gentle Palamon sent for, without the latter's knowing the matter or the reason. But Palamon came sorrowfully in his black clothes at Theseus's high command. Then Theseus sent for Emily. When they had sat down, and all the place was quiet, and Theseus had waited for a time before any word came from his wise breast, he set his eyes there where he wished, and sighed quietly with a sad face. After that, he said his will just thus. So Theseus sits with Emily and Palamon and gives a speech. When the first mover of the supernal cause first made the fair chain of love, great was the outcome, and his plan was exalted. He well knew why and what he intended by it. For with that fair chain of love he bound the fire, the air, the water, and the earth within short limits, so that they might not flee. That same prince and mover, said Theseus, has established down in this wretched world certain periods and durations for all that is engendered here, beyond which limits they may not pass, although they may well shorten their days. It is not necessary to cite any authority, for this is proved by experience. But I desire to make my meaning clear. We may well discern then, by his orderliness, that the mover is immovable and eternal. Anyone but a fool may easily see that every part derives from the whole to which it belongs. For nature did not take its beginning from a mere part or a portion of a thing, but from a thing that is complete and unchangeable, descending until the point where it is subject to destruction. And therefore in his wise providence he has beyond doubt so well arranged his scheme that particular things and happenings are to last by succeeding themselves, and not by being individually eternal. This may you comprehend and perceive at a glance. What Theseus just said is exactly what Aegeus told him years earlier, right after Arcite died. You can't control it. The mover, or whoever is in control of fate or destiny, has predetermined everything. There's no way that you're going to be able to change the outcome of anything. Look at the oak that has so long a period of growth from the time it first begins to sprout, and has so long a life as we may see. Yet, at last, the tree is destroyed. Consider also beneath our feet the stone on which we tread and travel. Hard as it is, yet wastes away as it lies by the road. The broad river at some time goes dry. We see great towns diminish and pass away. You may see, then, that all things have an end. So then what Theseus tries to say is that there's a way, there's an end of all things. And what he's trying to get to is that there needs to be an end of this mourning. Palamon continues to mourn Arcite. Emily continues to mourn Arcite. And what he's trying to say is that there needs to be an end to this. So make sure you have notes 35, 36, and 37. We're going to stop video 3 here. Okay? You'll have one more quick video to finish up the Knight's Tale.